Yes, welcome in everyone to the Championship Sunday edition of the Next Game, New Game podcast. And because it's Championship Sunday, we finally have at least three of us four back in the podcast form. Matt Catrillo here with you as always. Alex Kozora has rejoined the show. Alex, good to see you back. I know it's been a tough week for you. How are you holding up with the Steelers' loss after this week?
Wish I was doing better, but, we'll get into it. But I wasn't shocked by Jacksonville winning, and maybe the only Steelers fan that wasn't. But I wasn't either. All the mixed feelings. Yep.
There you go. Ian rejoining the show as well. Ian, how are you holding up?
Well, thankfully, I missed the game. I was flying back from Memphis, and I watched the Steelers go down 21-7. And then by the time I got back, and it actually was probably the worst thing, because when I got back, the score was, they were only down by 7. So I threw the radio on real quick so I could listen to what happened. And right as I turned the radio on, they blew it. So, but when I rewatched the game, it at least gave me a little bit of clarity of what actually transpired. So, was not surprised. I mean, people were talking maybe very confidently, overconfidently, about how Pittsburgh was going to beat Jacksonville. And I remember saying, like, hey, everything that Pittsburgh doesn't do well, Jacksonville can exploit. And that's exactly what we saw.
Exactly right. So we will get into that a little bit later on. A lot of changes have been already made by the Steelers and to the changes to the coaching staff. So we'll get into that after we break down the two games that are happening on Sunday, which does involve the other Pennsylvania football team, the Eagles. We'll start with that
How
first.
long have you been waiting to say that?
A very long time. It feels great for the Eagles to be back in this form and one game away from the Super Bowl as they host the Vikings on Sunday at 6:40. We'll break down that game first after they hang on for dear life at the end. Get a little lucky. Julio Jones drops the pass in the end zone. At least saw on the replay there. If he had come down, it would have been out of bounds anyway. But regardless, Eagles hold on. They win 15-10.
We kept the audio from whenever they hired Doug Peterson and how angry you were about that.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm glad I've been proven wrong.
And when they drafted Carson Wentz.
Yeah,
and earlier this season. And last year when we said, it's okay, they're a young team, they'll be better next year. And you're like, no. Man, I wish we held all that stuff right now.
And you know what? I'm happy to eat all of that for lunch because...
A montage of angry Catrillo.
I'm so happy to be eating that right now because I will say this, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but if the Eagles somehow were to win the Super Bowl this year, this will be one of the greatest, and not the greatest, coaching accomplishments in the history of this league. I don't think there's any question about it.
Let's not get too far. You got to get there first.
Right, like I said, but I'm putting that out there now. If Doug Peterson were to pull this off, this is going to go down as one of the greatest coaching seasons that I will have ever seen. I think that ever will go down in league history. But
I will maintain it's probably the best executive season that's ever. I mean, the front office from the Philadelphia Eagles, if they do win this year, I think that the depth that they have created on their team on all phases has been really, really remarkable.
And rightfully so. Howie Roseman was named the NFL Executive of the Year yesterday by the Pro Football Writers Association. So before we talk about what's going to happen in 2 weeks or 3 weeks from Sunday, let's talk about first, guys, how the Eagles can get there. And they face a Vikings team that had their own miracle in Minneapolis last week as Stephon Diggs pulls in the game-winning 61-yarder to beat the Saints. DeMarcus Williams somehow let him get by on that terrible angle he took. So when you look at this game, guys, how can the Eagles win this thing? Where do you think some of the tendencies lie on both sides? So we'll start with Alex. What's the number one thing you look at with this matchup? Because these are two very, very similar teams.
Sure. I mean, it's all about pass rush. A pretty obvious thing to say, but when you talk about teams that are, like you said, pretty close, I'm looking at the pass rush of the Eagles able to get home, to get some pressure on Case Keenum, force the ball out quick. Same thing goes on the other side with Nick Foles, who's going to establish the ground game. Both run games have been, not as strong as what they could have been. Obviously the Eagles made some moves to get Ajayi in, because they did upgrade there. The Vikings, they lost Dalvin Cook early in the year, so both teams try to find different guys and different rotations to supplement that. So that's kind of what I look at. He's going to establish the run. That's going to put them into second and third manageable. It's going to help mitigate the pass rush both defenses bring.
Ian, what's the number one factor you look at this game?
Number one factor is the quarterbacks. By far, hands down. These are two quarterbacks that if anyone told you at the beginning of the season that these two quarterbacks would be playing in the NFC Championship game, we would have called that person crazy or Tyler DiGiacomo. I don't know. Anyway, this is incredible. I mean, I love this. I love this two guys who are journeymen are having great seasons. I love it. I think the advantage goes to Case Keenum. He has played remarkably well this entire year. This Vikings team is running at a click. I think Philadelphia, their defense has to outplay the Vikings defense. And it's such a weird thing to say, but I think the Viking offense is better than Philadelphia's offense. So Philly's, their secondary, they have a tough day ahead. They have to get after the passer, and they have to some way manage Stefon Diggs and Adam Thielen. If they don't do those things, it could be a long day.
Yeah, definitely no question there about what the Eagles' defense has their work cut out for them facing that Vikings offense. But if we're going to compare both quarterbacks, Keenum and Foles, Keenum's obviously had the much better season so far, 22 touchdowns, 7 picks. And you look at what Foles has done these last couple of games, hasn't been great. Now, he had a nice game last week, didn't turn the ball over, did exactly what was asked and what he needed to do to put the Eagles in position to score and win the game. When you look back at the regular season, minus that Giants game, he wasn't very good. So I guess Keenum, you give the slight edge there. But when I just figure out where this game is and where some of the matchups are and the atmosphere that Keenum's going to be in, he just got through his first playoff game in his career as a starter. Now he's going to come on the road in what's going to be a hostile environment at the Link, facing the Eagles defense that is a number one ranked defense playing at home. They've only given up 13 points a game at home. Number one ranked against the run at home, and especially in the red zone. They haven't allowed a rushing touchdown yet at home this season. So you put all those factors together, and this other stat, too, I think also stood out to me. Now, I get it's just one game, but the playoffs are a different animal, and that is the quarterback rating for Case Keenum when he was under pressure last week was 5.8. And the majority of that came from the interception he threw late in the third quarter that set up a Saints touchdown that made it 17-14, and it helped the Saints kind of get their mojo back and eventually take the lead, have a chance to win the game. The Eagles have the ability, because they're at home, to do that and put their offense in a position to help a quarterback in Nick Foles, who's a mediocre quarterback at best. Let's face it, I'm willing to admit that now. I think that puts him in a better position to win this game. Now, if this game's in Minnesota, maybe I think differently. But I think there's a lot of circumstances and situational things that favor the Eagles in this matchup where I lean the Eagles. I think the Eagles have a very good chance to win this game. It's that factor alone. But you're right, Ian. If the Eagles can't do that, then it's going to be tough for the Eagles to win this game because of what else the Vikings present. But I think this is the number one matchup I look
Cox
at.
This game is going to be, such an imperative player.
Absolutely, and he was great last week.
Inside pressure is imperative. If Fletcher Cox has a good day, this could be a really interesting day. It really could. Every football game comes down to matchups and a handful of plays. So if Fletcher Cox can dominate and make a handful of plays, it's going to be a very, very interesting NFC Championship.
Definitely, and the other factor I look at, too, is I do think the Eagles have the better run game, and I think I have a lot of faith in this coaching staff where they'll be able to find creative ways to get things going and keep the football moving, more or less the dink and dunk that we saw last week. But I think you can see Doug Peterson get creative with Nelson Aguilar. This Vikings the defense is susceptible to giving up some yardage to guys in the slot. You saw Aguilar kind of do some jet sweeps and things. They had those nice designs last week, too. I like some of the matchups with Ertz and Bird in the slot. So, Alex, any other last-minute thoughts before we make our pick here on some of those things I mentioned?
Again, you talk about two evenly matched teams. You're talking about such an important game. It all comes down to details. Who's going to be more efficient in the red zone on third down? Who's going to be the least penalized team? And then, of course, the biggest factor of all, special teams. We've seen so many teams, whether it's the Rams or the Titans almost lost the game because of it, get knocked out because muffing punts and fumbling on kick returns and things like that. Who's going to make the chip shot field goal? Who's not going to let the punt bounce an extra 10 yards and get pinned deep? Who's going to do the coffin corner punt and put a team inside the 5? So I always focus on special teams. We've seen, obviously the Vikings don't have Blair Walsh, but we've seen what happened with Blair Walsh in the past in postseason football. So I think, again, it's always an undervalued and overlooked aspect of the game in general, but in the playoffs, its importance becomes magnified, and if you don't have a good special teams unit, you're going to be a real disadvantage.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Alex, because Kai Forbath missed a big field goal last week. Now, obviously, it didn't hurt the Vikings in the end, and he ended up coming back to make a big field goal late in the game, too. And you look at Jake Elliott. He makes big kicks. He made a 53-yarder last week, but then he missed an extra point. And those extra
Right.
points are going to be really critical, too, in this game. You can't be missing those gimme points like that in a game that I still believe will see points come at a premium. So, yes.
What's the
absolutely
weather
terrific
looking
point.
like in Philly?
As far as I know right now, it's going to be in the low 50s, late 40s, or high 40s at kickoff with good weather, sun cloudy. It'll be they'll have good weather. I don't know about the wind at this point, because I know it was very windy last week at the Link, and that, as you saw, that really affected the passing game. So that'll be.
I'm just curious. You don't have to give me the whole.
Yeah. So, but yeah, as far as I know, they should have pretty good weather for the game on Sunday. Yeah, no, it's a good thing to bring up. All right, so now let's officially pick this game. Ian, I'm going to start with you. Who do you officially like to represent the NFC in Super Bowl 52?
I'm going to take Minnesota. I think they're a much more balanced team at this point. So, and, the wide receivers for Minnesota, I think, have the advantage over the cornerbacks from Philadelphia. So I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings.
Alex?
I'm going Minnesota too. I'm sticking by what I said before. That Foles is not going to be good enough to get you there. Again, I know that Case Keenum is not an elite quarterback, but I think he's playing better football right now. A slightly better team overall. So pick Minnesota.
And I'm going to be in the island here. I'm going to take the Eagles. 16-13 is my final score. Like I said, I think the Eagles defense wins the game for them, because I think they're going to be able to get pressure on Case Keenum being on the road in that environment. I think the Eagles are going to be able to find a way to make a play to set up the Eagles offense, and the Eagles offense is just going to do just enough to win this game. And Nick Foles, I think, has another turnover-free game. But if they don't do that, then yeah, I can see the Vikings win this. But I'm sticking with the Eagles to pull it off 16-13 on Sunday. So next we'll move on to the AFC Championship game. The Jaguars taking on the Patriots, and unbelievable turnaround that the Jaguars have had, guys. And obviously, you look at defensively, what they bring to the table. Now, of course, they gave up 42 points last week, so you look at that, take that maybe a little bit with a grain of salt, but you can't deny what they have, and that's carried them to this point. And Blake Bortles, I'll say this, and Alex, I know you both of you guys really looked at the tape pretty good, and he's not, obviously, he is what he is. I still think he stinks as a quarterback, but if this has been another tremendous coaching job, I think, by Doug Marrone, and the fact that he's been able to coach up that defense and then run the football just to put Blake Bortles in position to make the throws he can make in big spots. And I think you saw that on the game-clinching touchdown last week as well. So I think all in all, that'll be able to keep this game close. But when I look at this bottom line, it's Blake Bortles, Tom Brady. Tom Brady is just going to make plays late, and same with Rob Gronkowski. That's basically how I think it comes down to it. Alex, we'll start with you. Your first thoughts on this.
Like I said, I know I wasn't on the show when we talked about, the divisional game, but Jacksonville scared the heck out of me because they have an identity, they have a game plan, they're physical, and they're one of the most efficient teams in all of football. They're great with red zone offense, they're great with red zone defense, top 5 third down defense, they don't get penalized too much, and they can make games competitive and close, and I think this one will be, for the reasons you stated. Marrone's done a great job of building the identity, of cultivating the talent. Tom Coughlin gets a lot of credit as well. They know who they are. It's not really flashy. It's not this 50-point-a-game type offense that like New England's able to pull off, but they know what they want to do. They're going to limit possessions. They're going to win field position battles. They're going to win the turnover battle, and they've done a great job of that. So they're a team that can match up because they have the pieces defensively to answer all the weapons offenses bring. Jalen Ramsey, Boye, Colvin, the safety play at Gibson, Barry Church. So it'll be tough to take down Gronk, but just in the way they did against the Steelers to certain extents, they're able to make some of the timely plays. I'll wait on my pick, but I just want to give Jacksonville that credit because no one else really has been until they beat Pittsburgh.
Right, no, I definitely hear you there. It's such an athletic unit, and me talking about the defense, what they have up front, and then the shutdown abilities that they have in the secondary really is. It's obviously been a great defense, one of the best in the league, and certainly can help them stay in this game on Sunday. Ian, some of your initial thoughts now.
I think we've seen this movie before. When we've seen the Patriots play, they have great defense, and we've seen them struggle against defenses very similar to what Jacksonville will employ. Pass rush that can hit you from all angles, up the middle. You see great quarterback play, great secondary play. Tom Brady has struggled, especially the last couple of years. I'm talking about those Denver games. He did not play well against Denver, and
Giants
that's a very similar type of defense. So I don't think, I have a Patriots fan in my office, and I asked him this week, hey, are you nervous? He's like, absolutely not. It's Jacksonville. I'm like, well, you better look again, because Jacksonville is darn good. I don't even want to pay attention to that 42 points they gave up because, listen, Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell did a lot of that by themselves.
That's true.
And no offense to anyone with New England, they are a great football team. Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown are not playing for the New England Patriots. They have struggled against teams that have been able to employ great defense.
Fair point.
Yes, Gronk is a matchup nightmare, but it's not like the Jacksonville Jaguars don't have multiple pieces that they can throw and mix up their coverage with. You have Miles Jack as a linebacker, who's a genetic mutant as a linebacker. You have Jalen Ramsey, A.J. Boye. They're going to throw a lot of different things at Rob Gronkowski. It's going to be up to the other players, Danny Amendola, Deion Lewis, to make plays for New England to score points. And I'll be honest, I think when I mention those two players, I can think of 3 or 4 other players for Jacksonville that are better overall players than those guys. So it's going to be up to the New England secondary guys. I'm ready.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you're making, because Jacksonville's secondary is good enough to say, okay, I maybe can leave a guy like a Brandon Cooks, or even guys like you mentioned, like Danny Amendola, on an island, so that I can try and take Rob Gronkowski away, because that's going to be Brady's security blanket facing that pass rush. There's some of those matchups there that Jacksonville can certainly win as long as that front four does its job. So let me pick it back off that now, and I'll go back to you in a sec here and ask you this. Tom Coughlin obviously is the VP of the football operations here for Jacksonville. He's not the head coach, but it's been talked about out there. Is there a factor in this being that the success that Coughlin's had against the Patriots in the biggest of games, winning both of his Super Bowls against him, because of the formula of rushing 4, to drop back 7, and then obviously you find a way to set up your offense to make plays in the end to beat New England?
Listen, those were really good Giant defenses.
Right. Now let me ask you this. Is that factor in this year?
Defense.
Okay.
This is totally, listen, does it employ a little bit of confidence? Maybe minutely. But all of that stuff goes out the window whenever the ball is kicked off. Then it's just talent. Then it's just the guys on the field making plays. Jacksonville has more talented players than New England. Does that mean that Jacksonville will win? No, because Tom Brady's still on the other side. And if the game's close and the ball's in the hands of Tom Brady, who knows what could happen.
Alex, do you buy the Coughlin factor in this?
Oh, you're just talking about overall roster construction, and Coughlin's been able to build up great rosters wherever he's gone. And again, it's a simple formula and identity where, Jacksonville, what also makes them successful on defense is they blitz when they want to, not when they have to. They can get home with 4. They were second in the NFL with 55 sacks. I think 38 of those 55 came from their defensive line, so they have that identity. And then occasionally they will bring a corner blitz. Watch out for Jalen Ramsey or Colvin coming off the edge to pop Brady. They're going to try to get after him. But when you can rush 4 and drop 7 in coverage, you're going to make every throw difficult. You can still get pressure. That's a formula for any team to win. So, yeah, I guess I buy it, but it's just a universal formula that Coughlin's done better than what most, guys have been able to do.
Yeah, it's a curious thought to this game, and curious factor to this game. Now, he's not on the sideline, so, I don't know how much I buy it, but again, the fact that he as you mentioned, Alex, he set up that culture, he set up that formula, and obviously has had a hand in putting this roster together to be able to have this situation out in front of him to do something like that. So it'll be very interesting to watch on Sunday. And like I said, I think because of that formula, they'll be able to stay in this game. But I just don't see Bortles trying to match up Brady to make enough plays with his arm. He certainly can with his legs, but I just don't see it with his arm. That he's going to have to use his arm to win this game on his own.
He has to have a big game, because New England's going to try to take away the running game. They're going to dare Blake Bortles to beat them. And therein lies, the talents that the Patriots have with their second for New England hasn't played great all season, but over the last couple of weeks, they are showing the flashes of what we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season. Whenever I said, quite famously, that I thought they were going to go undefeated. Clearly that didn't happen, but this is still a defense that has a lot of talent, especially in the back end. So Blake Bortles has to have a big game. Has to have a big game.
You're up by 3 games there, Ian, on the Patriots. So let's do it now.
They were still the number 1 seed. So
you're right.
I'm
just teasing you there. Okay, so here we go. Let's pick this game officially. Alex, who you got officially in this one?
I talked up Jacksonville because they gave him credit, and Ian, I thought it was funny when you said you were talking to your coworker, and they said it's Jacksonville. How much longer can that, dig exist? What are they going to hoist the Lombardi? People are going to go, well, it's Jacksonville. They'll lose next.
Yeah.
Like, how long are you going to play that card? But I'm not picking against Tom Brady. I know this story about his hand we didn't really get into. I'm not picking against Belichick. That defense has improved greatly. If you look at the overall season numbers, they don't look pretty. If you look at the second half of the season, they're top 5 in a lot of categories. So I'm taking New England.
All right, so Alex got the Wigan. Yeah, I'm not really buying the hand thing either. It's something to look out for, but I ultimately don't think it's going to really bother him that much. I'm not really fretting about that too much, though. Maybe a lot of people do wish that will be the case, but I'm taking New England too. I think they win this 23-16. Like I said, Jacksonville keeps the defense, keeps them in it, but too many plays for Blake Bortles, I think, to make to match Tom Brady. Ian, who are you picking?
I'm going to take Jacksonville.
Whoa!
Everything tells me matchup-wise that Jacksonville can win this game. Listen, there's 2 things that travel in playoff football on the road: running games and defenses. So I think Jacksonville is going to be able to keep this game close. Jacksonville's defense is going to be able to cause turnovers. And listen, if Jacksonville goes up on New England like Atlanta did last year in the Super Bowl, I don't think Jacksonville is going to have any problem with giving the ball to Leonard Fournette as many times as needed to close it out. I'm not saying they're going to jump on him early. I'm just saying I think Jacksonville has the dudes to pull this game off. And I think their defense is going to make life very, very hectic for Tom Brady. They're going to get after him. It's going to be tight coverage, very talented coverage on the outside. So, Brandon Cooks, Rob Gronkowski, are they going to be able to find the space that they'll need to make big plays? Because I think Jacksonville is really going to limit it. We'll see Tom Brady. The thumb is a factor, but not a huge factor. But it's still a storyline in this game. And I think if you give that Jacksonville defense something to bite at, something to aim for, I think they're going to be able to attack. And I'm going to take Jacksonville. I'm not going to give you a score because I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Wow, shots fired. How do you like that one, Alex?
Hey, he's a madman. He's got the Pirates hat on a little too tight today, I think.
Yeah, that's probably my problem today.
Yeah, speaking of Pittsburgh and problems, let's go to the Steelers real quick before we wrap things up for this week. And to me, obviously that was an embarrassing performance of almost biblical proportions, I think, of being blown out by like that and embarrassed like that at home. And I think they're making the right changes. I think both coordinators needed to go, especially defensively. I think offensively too. You're just not seeing things work here. Maybe on the field schematically when you put points on the board, sure, but just from an overall standpoint and friction-wise, I don't see it. And I'll even go this far. Alex, I'll start with you on this. I think Mike Tomlin. Now, I'm not saying he should be fired, but I'm saying that his seat should be a little warm next year. Let me start with you on this, Alex.
Well, I mean, if they struggle again, then those questions will come up. It doesn't really matter how warm your seat is going into the year. It'll just care how what you do during it. So, it doesn't really matter to me. I mean, you said they're doing the right things, but you wanted Keith Butler, the defensive coordinator, gone. He's going to be kept, it looks like. So it's only Haley that was not renewed, not a firing. But yeah, I mean, for Haley, it was all about relationships, a lot about, on-field production from an on-field standpoint. He deserved to stay, but it goes beyond that. So you're going to have someone, and now Randy Fichtner, with a really close relationship with Ben. But yeah, it's just been disappointing. They got to clean the communication defensively. That was an issue and a sticking point all year long. It never got any better. It actually got worse. And I think that was a big source of the problems that they had this season was poor communication.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but were you for Butler being let go as well, even though it sounds like it's not going to happen?
It was a really close decision. I think he should have stayed, was what I wrote about. So giving it another year was kind of my standpoint.
Okay. Ian, what were your thoughts on the game and how the coaching changes should be going now at this point?
Well, I mean, every game comes down to just a handful of plays in a couple of moments. And being able to watch the game after the fact, not having watched it live and knowing the outcome, watching a game, it was frustrating to watch because Pittsburgh grabbed the momentum, specifically at the end of the first half and into the third quarter, where I'm sitting there watching the game going, how did this team lose? They're all the momentum. Everything was going their way. They made a couple of plays defensively. They're making big plays on offense, but they couldn't get the Jacksonville Jaguars off the field on third down a few times. Big play in the secondary was given up by Joe Hayden in the back-end safety. The fullback runs right past Sean Davis and the linebacker, Sean Spence, I believe it was, for a touchdown. the 4th-and-1 play that everyone loves to dissect. Every game comes down to just a couple of plays, and Pittsburgh didn't make those plays, but that isn't something that won't surprise you because they had issues with that all season long. Kind of record be damned here a little bit. Pittsburgh had these same issues, as Alex said, all year long, and they never got any better. And for as well as some players played on this team, for the great seasons that Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and Ben Roethlisberger had, especially in the back half of the season, I think we all kind of wondered when the bottom, I should say, was going to fall out on defense, because every week we're like, okay, yeah, this team's playing well, but haven't played anyone yet. They haven't played anyone yet. And then in the back half of the season, when they still weren't really playing anyone, shoot. And listen, we can give all the crap we want to Blake Bortles. The dude is still a quarterback he
made plays when he needed to because he was set up that way, and Jacksonville did a great job. Pittsburgh, Ian, not to interrupt you, but Pittsburgh to me in this game, the biggest reason why Jacksonville won this game is Jacksonville severely outcoached the Steelers in this game.
I think the out-coaching narrative is the biggest piece of horse dung that there is. Because you have, listen,
your team goes down 21-0 at home in a playoff game. That tells me the team's not ready to play.
Okay, but so Ben Roethlisberger throws that really terrible interception where he should have thrown it out of bounds. That's Mike Tomlin's fault.
Well,
whenever Ndakwe takes the ball out of Ben Roethlisberger's hands, and then Jacksonville returns that for a touchdown. I mean, that's not coaching issues. That's we have to give credit to Jacksonville.
No question, and I do.
Great game. The players on the field dictate 90% of what really happens on the field. Yes, is there coaching involved? Absolutely. But the players are the ones who are playing. Pittsburgh's defense, no pressure, no sacks, no turnovers were forced. Offense, those 2 turnovers led to 14 points. So you don't turn the ball over. Let's say you punt the ball after that 3rd down play instead of it being intercepted. Maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars punt the ball, and that touchdown isn't there. At the end of the game, then it's a totally different game. It's a totally different game. Pittsburgh gets their act together. Maybe Jacksonville doesn't get the scores that they do, and now Jacksonville's trying to play from behind. Don't turn the ball over.
Right, no, and some of the things, obviously, if you're Big Ben, you can't make that throw, and he had similar throws like that. And even when you go back to the first matchup, same thing when he threw 5 picks. But when you see the same inconsistencies on defense that Alex, you referenced, and some of the other in-game management decisions, even though the game's already won by Jacksonville, end of the game, 2 minutes, you're under the 2-minute mark to go, you're down 10, you're wasting all that time, and then you don't take the field goal there, and then to try to do the onside kick. Because either way, you have to do an onside kick, and he wastes all that time. You got a touchdown for nothing at the end. It just went on and on and on. And then, yes, turnovers are personnel inflicted, but at the same time, I think it still comes with being prepared and ready to play the game and being in the right mindset. I think that's where the coach comes in that retrospect. But I just think overall, it was just, I think this goes down as one of Mike Tomlin's most poorly coached games in his career. And I still think he's a good coach. Like I said, I don't think he should be fired, but I still think there should be a little bit of a warm seat for him next year, because this was just one of the most disappointing ends to a Steelers season I think I've seen. And again, one of the worst coach games I think I've seen in Tomlin's career. Alex, I don't know if you have any feedback on that before we wrap it up.
No, I disagree with Ian. I think they were out-schemed, out-coached, and the Jaguars were more physical. Now, I don't think it's necessarily that the Steelers weren't ready to play or in the right mindset. I don't really buy into that. It's playoff football. I think guys are in the right mindset, but it's hard to do without getting into all the tape and stuff. But you look at, like Petrillo, you said, the decision to not kick a field goal on the last drive, Tomlin's onside kick decision, which is an awful decision. There's no two ways about it. Some of the other good things that Jacksonville did, out-schemed, out-coached, doesn't mean that the Steelers necessarily did a bad job. It just means the Jaguars did a better job. And you look at the full, who runs play action fullback vertical in the end zone like that? That was a great play call. Totally fooled Pittsburgh.
Absolutely.
You look at Cole's 45-yard completion that got down to the 3-yard line. That was taking advantage of what the Steelers do in cover 3 against over routes. So, I mean, you get into the minutia and some of the detail stuff. Jacksonville's scheme was excellent. Steelers shot themselves in the foot. So, I disagree with both of you guys, I guess, in the sense that I think they were out-schemed, out-coached, and Jacksonville was ultimately the more physical team. But I don't think Petrillo was an issue of not being ready to play. It was just Jacksonville, having a scheme that was more effective.
All right, so there we go then. And before we wrap it up, the other thing I wanted to bring up was Le'Veon Bell. everyone saw the tweets about him talking about playing the Patriots again, the two matches, part 2 matches, whatever he said. I guess my biggest question is, this is multiple times now, and I know we've said this about him a couple of times, but for you guys and following this team, and Alex as closely as you do, is this beginning to wear on Pittsburgh a little bit, just some of the off-the-field antics he does? I mean, it just to me, he just doesn't get it sometimes. Now, we get great talent in the field. I'm not saying I would get rid of him or not bring him back, but what I'm saying is, does it... I compare him a little bit to what Odell Beckham Jr. has done, where he just doesn't think, and he's such a talented player, but off the field just puts his team in just bad spotlights. He brings up the contract situation a couple days before the game. Then obviously the tweets come out about playing the Patriots again and this and that. Just do you feel like it's maybe his antics are wearing on the team a little bit and may not be worth it to keep him, or where do you stand on that, Alex? Let me go to you real fast here.
No, some minor frustration with it, but ultimately it's irrelevant to what happened on Sunday. And Bell played a great game Sunday. He was,
and he did have a great game. I should mention that. Yes.
When they ran it inside, and it's not going to change my feelings. You're going to put the tag on Bell. You're going to bring him back. So even if you are frustrated by it, which I can understand, it doesn't change the reality of it. Is that Bell has to come back in 2018? What's your other option? Let him walk? That's not going to happen.
Right, you don't have anybody back. And like I said, I wouldn't not want to bring him back at this point. But I'm just saying is it just some of these things that just came at the wrong time, and it's more of a curiosity than anything else. Ian, what do you stand on where Bell is on and off the field here?
I think there was no one in Pittsburgh not thinking the exact same way that Le'Veon Bell was. And they're mad now because they lost. But you cannot tell me there was... If you went down to the Strip District in Pittsburgh and you said, what do you think about the playoffs? They would have said, round 2 against the New England Patriots next week. So it wasn't like the Steelers were the only ones I don't want to say overlooking, because I don't think they were overlooking Jacksonville. But they had a mission in mind that they wanted to get revenge on New England, and they wanted to get through Jacksonville to do that. So that's, is it maybe frustrating because they didn't win? Yeah, but it's not like Le'Veon Bell went out there and laid a dud. It's not like he ran for
he backed it
10
up.
yards.
Right.
He had a great game. Le'Veon Bell wasn't playing defense.
Well, right, and again, that's more the issue here with defense.
Let's channel the anger in their correct channels.
Right. No, I get it. It was just more of a curiosity question, if that, as a disappointing end to the Pittsburgh Steelers season, and we'll continue to break things down as we move on to the offseason.
All right, it's the draft season.
What's that? Yes, NFC and NFL draft is starting too. We got the East-West Shrine Game 2 this weekend. The NFL PA Bowl game is this weekend too, and then the Senior Bowl is coming up. The rosters were announced. We'll start to look at that too as we get closer and closer to the offseason and the end of the season. But first, we have a couple of games to get ready for, starting with Championship Sunday this week. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of the show. Be sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at NGNG_NFL and Next Game New Game Podcast on YouTube. B104 Hunter is Ian's Twitter handle. At Alex_Kozora is Alex's Twitter handle, and I am at MControllo as well. Thanks so much for joining us here on this Next Game New Game podcast. Enjoy Championship Sunday.